Hey, what's up? Sysdemes here, and this is going to be the project walkthrough for my track Froggy. This is a pretty experimental track. I had a lot of fun producing this track. Actually, I had to try a lot of new techniques I'd never done before, as well as like trying new percussion rhythms and basic ideas as far as like how to structure percussion. And I got into granular synthesis for this project. So overall, I learned a lot making this project, and I had a lot of fun making the project. And so I'm going to show you how I made the project. So the basic idea for structuring of this track, as well as like the project layout, was I didn't want to keep everything in groups of 4. I didn't want to do like odd time signatures or have really long sections. I wanted to feel like it was always evolving rather quickly, rather like quick-paced progression. So it's just 4-bar intro, 4-bar body 1, 4-bar body 2, drop, 4 bars, 4-bar breakdown, 4-bar body 1, 4-bar body 2, or really you could say it's 3 and 4 because they're both different from 1 and 2. And then the drop 4 bars, and then the outro 4 bars as well. So everything was just contained within the body of 4-bar sections. So like the intro was the high pass kick with the synth coming in, just so it's easy for DJs to play a track if they're going to play it in a live mix. You can really mix any track into this, or like mix this into the ending of any track. Then it's just high pass with 1 synth. Then the bass comes in with all the drums. Start ramping up the energies. Second body section, more percussion. The bass and synth both start opening up a lot more. Then we have the first drop section with the granular synth. The breakdown where everything gets super filtered and more effects come in. Body 3 with totally different drums. Well, not totally different, but like a different feel to the drums. Body 4, same thing, always evolving the drums. Into the second granular drop. Into the outro. So overall, really standard structure, nothing crazy going on here. It just, sections of 4. I know I need an intro, breakdown, outro, then a couple drop sections. And so just do 4 bars of each and then arrange them and you have a whole track. And as far as the project goes, like with the count of the audio channels, there's only 17 channels because it goes up to 21. But, the 4 buses don't count because they're just buses, they're not actually audio generation sources. So really everything is pretty simple. There's only 3 synths, 2 effects, 1 bass, bunch of percussion. The rest of it's all percussion. But I didn't feel like it needed all this extra stuff. I felt like it could work as a simple project because I cared more about the sound design evolving and doing interesting things other than like stacking a ton of different melodies and layers. So it ended up being a simpler project, but definitely wasn't simple in the way that the sounds are created. So we'll get into the sounds right now. So the sound design for the track, I don't really remember honestly where I started this track. I know I made this project on stream a while ago. I just can't remember what started the project off. I'm pretty sure it started just like a sound design session that kind of turned into a track naturally on its own without like forcing it. So I'll just go top down. I'll start top and we'll move our way down to see what sounds are in here. So we'll start with pattern 1, which is the top synth. Let me turn off the side chain. I think that's right here. So that's the patch. This is the serum for the patch. It's in all allophones, wavetable, which is in the vowel section of serum, and then it's also being FM'd from just a basic saw. Which really, it's almost the entire sound like is at FM. Like if we disable the FM, if we disable the wavetable, it sounds a lot different, as well as the formant. This is also super important to the sound. Like without the 2 core parts of the sound design, it sounds a lot different. This is what I was messing with, and I had the linfold, or I don't know if it's linfold or linefold, but it looks like linfold. You have this distortion mode, which gives that buzzing to like the top end of the synth. Without it, there's no buzzing. Because I want to really grit up the sound a little bit. I didn't want it to be super clean. I was looking for something a little bit dirtier. So this is distortion, like just pretty much on the top end, and then with the FM as well activated, it sounds a lot different. It sounds like it's more nasally and doesn't sound as vowely, like down the back of the throat. Because I think vowel wavetails are kind of based off of modeled after human voices a little bit. They kind of sound that way anyways. So use the FM, try to make it a little more nasally, and then I have the formant filter, which is shifting the format. It's this LFO right here to make it sound like it's sliding around in pitch a little bit. You can see the shape, it goes way up and then it slowly goes back down. And that makes it sound like it's sliding around the melodies as opposed to, you know, just playing a single note the entire track, which it is. It's just, it doesn't sound like it's playing a single note the entire track because it's sliding around the formant pitch a lot. And that's pretty much the basic sound design for the like the drone melody that I have in the track. It's just, it plays the entire track. It kind of like is the anchor for the whole track. It kind of holds everything down. Like no matter where you're at in the track, your ear can, you know, it can still detect that groove of that synth in the background. So it's like, it's just like a guideline to carry you through the track if you just want to like vibe out. I think that repetitive synths are really important for vibing out to a track. It's something your brain can like lock onto. You can just kind of sit there and chill, and it'll always be there to kind of keep you in the zone. It's tracks that have a lot of you know, abrupt changes and dropouts and breakdowns and like key shifts. It's hard to vibe as much as those because it's always taking you out of the groove you were locked into. So for this track specifically, I wanted to really lock you into the groove for the entire track. So I had the synth play the entire time. Something that gets added and taken away over time is LFO of the envelope, I mean, of the chorus, which I'll turn on. You can hear it just really spreads the sound out. It doesn't sound as stereo and it gets a little bit detuned. So that's something that I do to evolve the sound over time throughout the project, as well as the reverb gets upped and fracture gets added, which is a it's kind of like it breaks the sound up into chunks, and you can change how big each chunk is and how many times each chunk repeats. So you have a lot of control over how broken your sound gets. And in this section of the track, I will play this section. Whoops. Let me solo this. You can hear the fracture working. It's kind of like that top end buzzing, clicking type sound. That's the fracture like cutting the sound up. If I go to full wet, you can really hear it. You can hear how broken the sound is, but I have this only at 50% wet because I still want the clean signal to be coming through half and half with the broken signal. So the fracture gets turned on, the chorus gets turned on, reverb gets turned on. So that's how I evolve the sound over time in the track. So let's move right along, and we can talk about the percussion next, since it's next in the project file, at least in like descending order. So I'll unmute everything and then solo just the drums. So there's like 4 distinct sections of the percussionist track. We have the first section, which is like the most empty, the most minimal. And then we have the section with the extra clap as well as extra hi-hat layers. Then we have really full hi-hat layers, like even more hats than this section. And then we have the section with the extra percussion and the hat stripped back down. So there's like 4 different versions of the same drum groove all happening in this track. So I want to avoid repetition in the drums as much as possible by like always changing up the groove a little bit as like from every 4 bar, which is like, you know, the track structure I had in my mind is every 4 bars, change it up a little bit. So let's go right in. We'll play just the most empty, like the core part of the track as far as percussion goes. that's pretty much it. That is the core of the percussion in the track. It's just the kick. It's just pretty standard, just a kick, you know, nothing fancy going on there. We do have 2 reversed clap snares, which are these 2 right here. We'll play these. So those 2, like usually you'd have a reverse clap or snare going into another clap or snare. I have these both going into a kick. I think it just makes the kicks hit a little bit harder, like those specific kicks. I think it makes for a cool effect to route the reverse snare and reverse clap to a kick instead of to a clap or a snare, which is usually the standard technique, is you route a reverse snare to a snare. There's also some more chop loops. You guys know I love chop loops. So this is the loop right here. And I chopped it up to do 2 different patterns, so it's alternating the glitches. This is the first one, and this is the second one. So they're just a little bit different. We also have a fill. It's not a fill, it's just a percussive hit, but there's a ton of delay on it, and you can hear it ping pong back and forth between the ears. So that hit only happens on the second percussive fill. So the first fill, there's no delay hit. And the second one, there is a delay hit. So just a little something to make them feel a little bit different. So it's not like the exact same percussive fill happening every single bar. We also have standard hi-hats. Well, not really standard. It's cut from a loop. And a lot of the transients exist which stack with the kick and help the kick set feel even stronger, because like this transients are being doubled pretty much. So just it plays really nicely with the kick, and it's also it sounds a little bit not high pass, sounds a little bit lo-fi. It's a little bit of an interesting hi-hat loop. It doesn't sound like a regular hi-hat loop. Everything is kind of like subdued. I got that effect from pitching the loop down 12. So like if I pitch it all the way back up, this is what the loop originally sounded like. And I just thought it sounded cooler down 12. Yeah, so did that, and then there's also a second loop chop, or I guess it's actually pretty much like the third loop chop. And this is just extra percussion that basically filled in the holes that the other percussive fills weren't hitting. So like everywhere that there's a gap, I thought like in my head I could hear where a fill could go. I just dropped it in. So this is all the fills together. So those are basically all the layers. We also have this. This is technically an effect, or like the FX. It's a yellow channel in the mixer, but I added it into the like within the drum section area of the playlist. It's just a reverse perk hit. It was a perk FX, and it had a really long reverb tail, so I just reversed it and then had it be a riser, which is just every other couple bars it comes in. It's just a nice effect. So that is like the basic core of the drums, and then everything from there is just adding and taking out layers. So in the next section, as well as sections over here, we have this extra hi-hat. And this is a pretty standard hi-hat. I mean, it doesn't do anything fancy with the rhythm. It just sits directly on the offbeat and plays along the whole time. Doesn't do anything crazy. We also have a clap here. And this clap wasn't meant to be on top of the mix in any way. It's meant to be in the back of the mix. So it's not processed to be on top. It's kind of quiet. Like the frequencies I picked are like blended into the drum loop, because I didn't want to have a clap that's sitting on top of everything. I wanted the clap feel of a clap, but I didn't want the clap to be sitting on top of the mix. So I play everything together. You can hear the clap is kind of under everything. Now you can definitely hear the clap, but it's not the star of the show. It's not on top of the drum beat. And the next element is this extra hat. So what I want to do is I want to have the alternating cymbals, which is where like you have one hit on the kick, one hit on the offbeat. Sounds like this. But I didn't want to always follow the standard structure of the alternating. So it actually goes from on beat to off beat, like back and forth as it progresses. So I'll play the cymbals together. So you can hear that it's alternating between being on the kick and off the kick as far as like the grid goes. I just thought it's something interesting to do, and like this is a sound godizer on it, and the processing, this is like a very on top of the mix type of hi-hat. I want this to be more prominent than the clap. Like the clap can sit under, and this hi-hat I want on top. Just like be unique with like which drums are prioritized for this track. I just thought it's interesting how like it's on grid and it's off grid and like alternates. I just thought that was interesting. I thought it sounded kind of cool to have something constantly shifting from on grid to off grid. That's that. And then when I go to the drop, I strip back a lot of the drums because I didn't want to compete with my granular synth. But in the transition to the drop, I wanted the kick to drop out because I didn't want to have, I wanted to have the kick have a big impact when the drop hits. But to have a big impact for the drop, when the kick comes in, you have to take out the kick in the first place. Because if you take away the kick, when you bring it back in, you can feel the impact it has. But I didn't want to lose like all the rhythm, because a lot of times when you take the kick out for a drop coming, you can kind of lose the rhythm. So that on top cymbal, I said, well, why don't I just have it play the place of the kick? So I just dropped it in where the kick would be. You can hear it like maintain that rhythm. So that's pretty cool. I thought it was a interesting transition. I like the way it sounded. I took the hi-hats out right here just for a second, just to kind of like reinforce that that this is the cymbal that's on beat. If you have all the cymbals playing, it can get kind of lost with all the cymbal stacking. So I want at least a couple seconds, like 2 hits of just the cymbal hitting, just so you can to show that's on beat and it's carrying the groove through. And I had the kick start 1 beat early, just because I thought it was interesting to throw an extra kick in, like Trick Peel, that started a beat early. I could have done something like this, and I had it start right there. That also would have been cool. I just happened to go with keeping everything on beat, as like that's the theme of what I've been doing with the other percussion. So 1 kick hits early. So the next section is right here, and this is pretty much the same as the section we just covered. However, the cymbal that just stays on beat, this one right here, that's actually cut from a loop, which is this loop right here. So all I did was in this second half, right after the breakdown, I just allowed more of the loop to come through, so it's a lot more extra hi-hats. Along with all the drums for context. And the reason why I put those there is because like I want to try to like inverse the standard progression of drums. Usually if you think about a progressive house song, not this is progressive house, just an example. If you think of a progressive house song, usually as the track ramps up, it has to progress. Things have to be taken away and added in. Usually what's added in are cymbals and like rhythm layers. As the progressive track keeps going and going and going, more and more drum layers are added. So I thought it'd be interesting if like, what if I did that backwards? What if coming out of a breakdown, I put like the maximum cymbals right at the very first section after a breakdown, and then slowly take away elements. I thought it might be cool to try to do the standard drum progression in reverse. And I think it made a cool effect, and like you come out of the breakdown with a ton of energy because of that. If I like unmute everything and like play all the synths, you can hear like the energy it comes into from the drop. Sounds a little. Every tutorial I forget to turn back on my sidechains, so it sounds a little weird. But anyways, you can hear all the energy that comes in when you enter the breakdown with all the drums going, like maximum drum energy. So I think it's a cool technique. I'll probably do this again in the future, like another project. I'll try slotting all my drums to happen right after the breakdown. So it continues on, and for the next section we take out the extra hi-hats. So the loop gets reduced back down to just a single hat, which is what we had in the other section. And then I added in this extra loop, which is this one. I'll play it. So pretty basic loop. I just chopped it up and wanted to make another rhythm with it, so I ended up going with this. It's just adding more percussion into the track. I thought it sounded kind of cool, like going from the very fast hi-hats to the new percussion rhythm, so I'll play the transition as well. I think it's a really cool sound. It doesn't sound like a progression, but it sounds like a shift. Like the whole energy and the mood of it shifts because it's not like hi-hat escalation. It then turns into like more focus on the glitch fills, and it sounds a lot slower because there's no hi-hats in between. I think it just sounds cool. Like I don't even have a lot of transition effects in this track. Like I don't think I have any at all. Just his voice thing, which I'll talk about later. But like as far as like cymbal crashes and stuff, I don't have any. I thought it sounded, I thought the transitions were good enough as they existed naturally, and it didn't need to like add cymbal crashes and sweeps and downlifters and all that stuff, which usually goes into a track like this. I know my other tracks I put in a ton of those, but for this track it just felt like it didn't need it. I thought it was a cool enough, a cool enough shift that I didn't need to mask over it with a big sweep or something like that, a big cymbal crash. But and then the drum stripped down again for the granular synth, and the outro is just really stripped down drum section. This is just the outro, so you could be mixing in another track here in the live set. So that's pretty much all the percussion. That's all the drums. Let's keep going down and let's see what's next, which is the bass. So we'll talk about the bass. Let's solo this and turn off the side chain. Dude, this sounds like, was that pattern 2? Oh, oops. So that's pretty much the sound of the bass in this track. It's just a single oscillator. Well, I guess you could say it's 2, but this is really just adding like some extra boost to subharmonic. So it's not really like it's affecting the sound that much. I think if I turn off, it won't even sound that different. You can hear it just kind of thickens up a little bit. So really it's just single wavetable. Have a little bit of hyperdimension, bunch of distortion, pretty hard distortion actually, some delay, and then a compressor just to like boost the gain a little bit. Really the whole sound design for this patch comes from this LFO right here, this envelope on the octave of the bass. If I bypass this, it sounds a lot different. It's pretty much just the wavetable opening up on this envelope with the cutoff, the cutoff filter. What this envelope is doing, it's 1/8 dot rhythm, so it's adding rhythm into the patch, and it's also linked to the octave of the oscillator. So as this envelope slides around and re-triggers, it's shifting the sound through different octaves. So it's not just playing like a single bass note, it's like going up and down through the octaves. So it's almost like it's playing a melody, even though it's a single note. You can now hear like it's going up and down really quickly through the octaves. And it's pretty cool. The thing that gets modified on the sound as it progresses is the filter resonance. So we'll turn that up. You can hear what it sounds like as it progresses. So as the track progresses, resonance goes up and it modifies the sound like that. And that's kind of where the track name Froggy came from. Is the bass sounds like a frog croaking a little bit. It was kind of partially that. It was also an inside joke with my friends. Like we want to like name a track Froggy because like it's kind of fun. It's just like an inside joke. I didn't explain it, but if I was going to name a track that, what better than the track where the bass literally sounds like a frog croaking? So it kind of just all came together, and the frog croak bass worked in the track. It actually worked really well with everything else I had going on with the percussion. So yeah, the bass stayed, and then the name stayed as well. There are two different basses. So in the second half of the track, we switched to pattern 3. So I'll play that. You can hear it sounds a little bit different. We have a different cutoff envelope, and we also have a different shape and different timing on the octave. So before it was a 1/8 dot, and it was a short like straight line slant triangle, and now we have a more sloped, higher, and it also is a 1/4 dot LFO window. So it's going through the octaves. It's going higher in the octaves, and it's also going at a much slower rate, a 1/4 dot instead of 1/8 dot. But the cutoff is still the resonance still goes up over time. So those are basically the two basses that we use in the track, and it's really standard stuff as far as processing. Like I always have a ferric because it just makes basses sound good. Another way to put it. We have a kind of a cut around 800, a booster at like 3.5. I'm just trying to give a little bit of brightness to the highs. We have some filters which get turned on and off as the track goes through. Another boost at 1700 just make it like a little bit brighter because there's really not a lot in this track. So like the bass could fill up the full sonic range because it's not competing with anything. It's pretty much just the bass and the drums, and then that's just a filter and the sidechain. So overall, the bass, pretty simple sound design, but I think it's cool. I think it's a cool sound design. It's a cool trick with the octave envelope. So if you ever want to like experiment with the bass patch, try throwing an LFO onto the octave of your bass and see what happens. So the next sound in the track is this little lead right here. It only happens twice in the project, so it's not that relevant. I'll just play it for you. Which one is it? Yeah, it's the middle encounter. So it's just a really bright pluck. Which pattern is it? Let's see. Right here. So this is from a patch from my old project called Methods, which I never finished. I had a lot of sound design come out of that project that I saved because when I have a project, sometimes I will save them in a folder I have here called track specific. These are like different tracks I've written that I save the presets from them there. I didn't for this track. I could make a folder called Froggy and save the basses and save the lead up here. All the sounds I made specifically for the project. I just didn't do it because I didn't feel like I need to save them. I feel like I could just let them sit where they are. They're such a unique sound that I don't think I could make them work in other projects. So I saved them here. Anyways, this is the same pluck that I use in my track NXS. It is off my Inertia EP. I think it was modified a little bit differently, but basically the same sound design, like is the same starting position. Like this is the same preset that started for the sound. It's pretty much just very simple pluck, OSC stacking. You got like a square type wave right here, simple saw. 14 voices, detuned a little bit. This is a single voice. It's a good idea if you're gonna have a very detuned oscillator to have a single voice oscillator, because you don't want to add a ton of voices and have it like really spread stereo. As long as you have one oscillator that's one single voice and it stays in the middle, it kind of helps keep the sound like on a more solid foundation. It's not like just crazy all over stereo, especially when you have like randomization on your phasing. Your plucks will be hitting all over the place. So having one oscillator stay single voice keeps your pluck like kind of centered. I don't think anything's going on here, like pretty standard LFOs. I don't think they're even activated. This is just well, 4 is, but 1 is just the cutoff envelope for the filter. And the effects, we have some distortion, ton of delay, ton of reverb, and a comb filter. So the comb filter is used to kind of spread the sound out. Without the comb filter, it sounds a lot different. You can hear that it sounds super, super plucky. With the comb filter, it kind of spreads everything around. And it makes it sound like a much fuller bodied sound source. I mean, this is cool too, though. Like the way it's super, super plucky. I'd probably open this up and use it in another project and try to experiment with using the super plucky pluck. But you know, for this track, I wanted to use the super spread out. And this LFO is affecting the reverb. So usually when I use this patch in a project, depending on where the MIDI ends, is like the stopping point for the envelope. So say a MIDI note ended and it happened to end right here, that's the max reverb. So it would have a ton of reverb at that point. But it just so happened in this project, every time the MIDI ended, it was always off of the highest point of the reverb envelope. So even though my reverb was automated, it never sounds like it has reverb. Because when the sound ends, reverb envelope is already closed. So it just like it didn't matter in this project. It could have been disabled. And the reverb is very long. It delays pretty much forever. Like if I play this and just let it keep playing, the reverb is the delay is gonna keep going pretty much until it re-triggers. It's gonna keep going the entire time, and that kind of adds another melodic layer into the track, along with the ARP I have up here. It's like it's almost like adding an ARP. I'm not really adding an ARP. It's just a delay that's left over from the pluck, and then at the end of it, I'll re-trigger it. You can even still hear it, but it's gonna re-trigger. Then the delay goes on for pretty much the rest of the track. It's just by this point in the track you can't hear it anymore because it's been such a long time, decays to nothing. So yeah, that's just a little synth counter melody. I just want to throw a little something in there, a little bit melodic, because I don't have any melody in there other than that. So yeah, it's just a little synth fill. I believe next we will talk about our granular synth. So I will solo that. Everything is this right here. Turn off the sidechain. Sounds so cool. So I've shown my EP to my friends and like other people like before it came out, and this is probably like my most requested, like most questioned sound is like, how do you make the lead on Froggy? So we're gonna go into it right now, and I will show all my secrets. Where is it? Right here. What pattern is it? 5. Make sure, yeah. Okay. So it's from Fruity Granulizer, and actually I remember making this on stream, and my good friend Two Scoops, he's an excellent producer. He came in and recommended that I try out Fruity Granulizer, because in his opinion it is like one of the better granular synths that are on the market. And this isn't good stock. This comes free with FL Studio. Like I didn't even pay money for this. So I tried out, and actually it's really insane. So basically the way it works is you load any sample you want. You could use your own sample or drop in a sound already made. I went with a Vengeance synth shot, which is, if you watch my tutorials, you know I love my Vengeance synth shots. So I went with this one right here. And I load it into the granulizer, and this is the sound that comes out. I don't know if I'm comfortable explaining how granular synthesis works because I'm not an expert in it. I mean, this is like basically one of my first projects where I actually released a track featuring granular synthesis. I'm not really sure how it works. I have an idea of how it works, so if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. I'm gonna do my best to explain what I think is going on. And just keep in mind I could be totally wrong here. I'm just trying to explain what I think is going on. So I'm pretty sure with granular synthesis, what happens is the sound is basically split into grains. You call them grains, and they're like little slices of audio. And what you do is like you can affect the spacing between the grains. You can expect the wave spacing on the grains. You can also affect how long a grain is held, so like how much of the clip is played at a time every time a grain is triggered. You can also change the attack of each grain. So if I turn off the loop function and I press play, sometimes it doesn't even make a sound. Sometimes it's totally silent because it's hitting, like, it's basically taking a random grain from the sample. If it hits over here, it's not gonna make any sound. So when I have a loop, it's gonna constantly loop and look for new grains to re-trigger the sound constantly. So that's what kind of gives the effect of the sound, is like it's constantly looping and re-triggering and looking for new grains to play, and kind of playing in a random effect. Like my randomization isn't that high, it's 12%, but it gives enough variance to the sound that keeps it interesting, and it's not just playing the same grains in a loop the entire time. I have a little bit of panning, so like the stereo image of the grain suddenly shifts around. So mostly they're gonna be stereo, or mostly gonna be centered, but a little bit of the time they're gonna be hitting like very hard panning. I'm not sure if I explained, like I said, I'm not sure if I explained ground sense as well. That's just like my understanding what's happening, which I might be wrong. I'm probably gonna go look up and like read a Wikipedia page on granular synthesis, make sure I fully understand what's happening. But I didn't look it up before I recorded the tutorial. I didn't look it up when I was producing a track. So this is my guess of what granular synthesis is, because it's over my head, but I want to go understand it. I'm gonna go look it up later. But it's very cool. If you have Fruity Loops FL Studio, you should have this plugin. So throw a sample into it, mess around with the knobs, and see what happens. You get some really cool effects. I actually had a lot of trouble with this project in particular, because every time I would change something or like reload the project or save a new version, it would like reset my grain calculator. Like the way the drop sounds is very specific, and I think even now, like doing the tutorial, I probably messed up the way the grain is, the order of the grains. Like that doesn't sound like the actual drop in the track that I rendered out and used as my final master. I had to like go into my file backup and pull up old versions of the project that had the correct grain order, because the grain order was totally wrong and I couldn't fix it. And I also couldn't replicate it. I couldn't get the grains back the way I had them originally. So I had to go do a file restore on an old version of the project to get my grains back in the order that they're supposed to be, because it's supposed to be totally random every time. But the way I had it saved, somehow is getting the same pattern every time, unless I change too much in the project, like toggling on and off things, adding new samples and taking things out, doing automation clips. Somehow everything was out like affecting the order of the grains. So it can be very finicky. My advice would be if you hear some pattern you like, consolidate, render it out, save it as a WAV file, so that you have it saved so that you don't lose it forever like I almost did. But that's pretty much it. It's just a sample and a granulizer. That's how I did the lead for Froggy. Nothing crazy. For the processing, it's pretty standard stuff. EQ, a little bit of boost there, a little bit of, cut the lows out, all that stuff. Soundgodizer, because it's my lead. I want it to be, really powerful in front in the mix. Serum effects is just for sample hold. In the breakdown, we have a sample hold turn on. You hear sample hold right there. Some reverb, a little bit of black hole, some more EQ, totally just standard stuff. And then the gross beat for sidechain. Nothing crazy going on there. And let's go to the last sound in the project. So the last sound in the project is this breath effects. So I will solo this. And what pattern is that? 7? Play this. Oh, FX is muted. I'm gonna turn this up because it's kind of quiet. So this is in Serum. This is just the H breath noise wavetable. It's totally standard. I don't think I do even anything to it. No effects, nothing. It's just the H breath noise oscillator. The cool thing about this sound is, well, I have some EQs on just to make it a little bit, change the tone of the breath a little bit. It's the Sennheiser Ambio Orbit. This is such a cool little tool. So I heard about this, actually a long time ago I heard about this. I think when it was like first released, but I never put it into a track. I just kind of had it like, people like to hoard plugins. I had this, but I never used it. I thought about since this is my experimental track, why not try that Orbit plugin out? So basically the way it works is this circle is like 360 degrees around your head. So it's like, they have the technology to make it sound like it's panned in front of you or panned behind you, as well as left and right. So you can really pan something to be in a full circle around your head. You can watch the automation clip. It starts in front, pans to the right, then you can hear it going behind us. Then it swings to the left, swings out in front, and goes back to right, and then ends behind us. So it's really, really cool. It's like 360 degrees panning. I know that this was a very popular plugin for a while. I don't know if it's still a trend on YouTube, but people would take a song, slow it down, add reverb, and then they would add an Orbit VST to it. It doesn't have to be this one particularly. There's a couple of them, but you add an Orbit VST, and it sounds like the track is spinning around you in your head. It's really popular on YouTube. If you look it up, you can probably find a couple of them. But I say throw it on the effect. I think it makes a cool effect. Like if you hear it in the context with everything, like I'll play the outro of the track. Make sure my sidechains are enabled. You can hear it's like spinning around your head as the track is with everything going on. So it's pretty cool. I just added that as a little effect, to try it out because I never used it before. And I actually like the effect, and I'd be down to do it again, a different track. So that is all the sounds. Like I said, it's not a very big project. That's all the sounds in the project. So let's cover the buses, which are pretty standard. We have, synth bus with the Maximus. This is just for controlling like the low end, capping the mids. I didn't want the mids to be too high. It's pretty much all I do is like if I feel like some things are coming in a little bit too hot, like the transients or the volume of it, I'll just cap them, just so I don't have any intersample peaking. I want to like not have random spikes. I want to avoid them at all costs. So like just going through the drums, the synth, the bass, and capping things, make sure nothing is too crazy. That's pretty much it. On the drums, I do have a transient. This is a free transient plugin. It just boosts the transients of your drums, or it takes them down. So it's from Sleepy Time Records. It's free. If you have that fella, it's actually go get this. It's super cool. Fruity Loops does come with a transient plugin, but I don't think it's included in the base version of FL Studio. I think it's included in like the signature bundle, which I don't have the signature bundle. I think I have the producer edition. I don't even remember. I bought FL 11 years ago. Again, is it crazy? I've been producing that long. So back then when I bought the producer version, it didn't come with a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't have a lot of the stock FL plugins because I have the lower version. But I still get free updates, so like it's chilling. Anyways, yeah. So you can use FLs if you have that version of FL. You can use that transient plugin, or you can just download a free one, like I did. So the Maximus once again. So like once all the buses get their Maximus to like the level capping, I'll then do one final level cap on like the entire track. Make sure everything is good to go. And then after that, we have the elevate. And for this time, once again, I didn't use the advanced effects because I didn't need to. Everything sounded fine. I did do a pretty harsh gain on this track. I did 6.5 dB. And I went with very slow for the speed of it. The reason why I went hard on the gain is because I had the headroom. Like you can see my buses are all here, are all minus 4.2 dB. I didn't want to mix this track very loud. I mixed this track pretty quiet. I want to make sure I had the headroom in there because I wanted the granular synth to really stand out on top of the mix. So once I didn't need the headroom anymore, obviously you just crush it back out with your mastering plugin once you're sure that you have the headroom, everything's sitting well in the mix, and you can squash it back out with the limiter. So that's pretty much my whole philosophy with the mix and master. Is I just want headroom to make the mix nice, and then once I didn't need headroom anymore, you just squash it out. So that's pretty much it. That's Froggy, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you learned something about this project, and I hope most of all that you're gonna go out after watching this and experiment, try a new form of synthesis, try a new plugin, try a new effect, or try a new way to structure your drums. Try something new. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.